Welcome to another back of the net recording. This is to help you get the maximum marks possible for the designing a questionnaire or commenting upon a questionnaire question that comes up in the exam. It's usually very simple to identify this is the question type because you either have the word questionnaire written somewhere or you end up with boxes that can be ticked and filled in. So it's quite easy to pick out, and I rarely meet students that's unable to identify that as the question type. As soon as I see that's the question type, my first step is to write down town. That may seem a little bizarre, but this is the way we remember to get the full marks for this. And town stands for, well, the T stands for time limited. The O stands for overlap, the W begins where, and the N is none. And those are the four key things that help us ensure we get maximum possible marks for this question. I'm going to read the question now. Fred is going to take a survey of the magazines read by students. He wants to design a questionnaire. Design a suitable question that he could use to find out what types of magazine students read. Well, for this question, we just need to write down what we might ask, but also include some response boxes. So it might simply be, what types of magazines do you read? And now we'll give some option boxes. I'd be really wanting to give none as one, just saying I do not read any, and that's why in town we have none, because whenever we ask a question we must always have a none response. I'm now just going to come up with some others. Sport, media, I'm showing my age slightly here, but I'm going to go for gaming, and last one here can be stuff to do with TV. So it really doesn't matter what you write, they're not actually going to mark you up or down according to these particular choices you've made. They will mark you down if you don't have a none, and they will mark you down if you don't have an other. And that O is there, it's actually for overlap, but that does help remember us a little bit there. Or some people say none, N-O, I need a none and an other. That's that question done. Fred put the question below on his questionnaire. How many magazines have you read? A few, a lot. Design a better question. You should include some response boxes. So they've actually prompted us here to design a question with some response boxes. But there are some other things we need to include. We must consider, is the question time limited? I.e., how many magazines have you read in the last week, or the last month, or the last year? It doesn't really matter what time you put on it, so long as there is a time limit to it. We want to make sure that our boxes don't overlap. The where bit doesn't really concern this type of question. That's more about where we would ask the question, but there's nothing in the examiner's question here that's saying say where you're going to go and ask the question. And the none bit is you must of course include that they're not going to read any at all. So here goes my question here. Design a better questionnaire, include some response boxes. How many magazines, I'm just going to speed up by saying mags, have you read in the past? I'm going to go for a fortnight here, just because that seems to me to be a reasonable amount of time. You may have chosen a month, you may have chosen a week, you could have gone for a year. It's been a bit bizarre, but probably people couldn't remember that far back. But you'd have got the mark because you'd set a set time limit period. I've now got to include some response boxes. Well, I mustn't forget, of course, the none. There it is in town. I mustn't, of course, forget to not to overlap my boxes. So none, 1 to 3. My next box, now I may be tempted to write 3 to 6. The problem with that, of course, is that the boxes overlap. If someone did say to you 3, would you tick this box? or will you tick that box? That would be a very poor question. So I just need to undo that. Give it a chance to do it. It's very slow today, my board. Okay, and I'm now going to go 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and then it's a bit like the other. I'm just going to say more than 9, and that'd be a perfect question. And for what I've written on this board now, I may well have picked up 4 or 5 marks for what are fairly straightforward responses. And some of my students say there's no maths in that, sir, it's all common sense. And there is maths in it, of course, but actually there is a strong measure of common sense too. I love it when I see this question coming up on an exam paper, because I know every single one of my students, either thinking like this, has got the question done. It's 5 guaranteed marks, some of the 5 easiest marks on the paper. Let's roll the board on. Okay, same idea here. I'm looking at this. I'm going to let you have a go at this yourself and then go through it. So if you'd like to press pause now. Welcome back. So first of all, straight away for me, when I see this question, I've got here a box with ticks in it, and somewhere I'm seeing questionnaire. So I know I'm on that whole questionnaire thing. It's going to be really easy. I love it when I see these questions because I think it's easy points, and that's what you should be thinking too. So straight away, let's get started off. I've identified it's the questionnaire question, so I just jot down town on the edge here. And I do that to get my brain thinking in the right mode, make it much easier for myself. Now I'm going to read the question. Simon wants to find out how much people spend using their mobile phone. He uses this question on a questionnaire. How much do you spend using your mobile phone? 1 to £5, 5 to £10, 10 to 15. Write down 2 things, really important there, because although I said it's a very straightforward question, quite often I see people just write one thing. Just say, write down 2 things that are wrong with this question. Well, I just go straight to the town. Time limited. How much do I spend using my mobile phone, or how much do you spend using your mobile phone in a month, in a week, in a year, in a day, since I first bought it? It's really not clear. So I just write down no time limit. That's 1 mark guaranteed. I've got to find something else as well. The next thing down on here is O for overlap. Do the boxes here overlap? Yes, they do. If someone says £5, is he going to tick here or is he going to tick there? So comma and, or not a comma, and boxes overlap. That's the 2 easiest marks on the paper. Part B, he's on a better question for his questionnaire to find out how much people spend on their mobile phone. You should include some response boxes. So you just copy down what it said at the start and correct basically what you've just done. How much do you spend on your mobile phone each month? I've chosen month because it seems lots of people have a monthly contract, but you could have said year, you could have said week. It really wouldn't matter. They just want to see that you've got a time limit to it. I've now got to include some response boxes. Just drew a few in there. I'll label them up in a minute. Mustn't forget, town must have none. Don't spend anything, none. 1 to £5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, more than 15. It says, how much do you spend on your mobile phone each month? Well, I ought to put some pound signs in here if I wanted to, or I could cheat. Mobile phone, brackets, in pounds. And I saved writing out too many times. How much do you spend on your mobile phone in pounds each month? None. 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, more than £15. No overlaps. I'm quite happy with that question. Let's scroll on for you. Okay, again I'm going to just ask you to press pause whilst you have a go. Press pause now. Welcome back. Let's have a go at this question. Straight away, again, when I see it, I open the paper, I see that before me. What do I see? Boxes to tick. I know. Oh, and the word questionnaire. Lucky, I'm glad I got this question. Easy points. Now let's try and answer it. Anil wants to find out how many DVDs people buy. He uses this question on a questionnaire. How many DVDs do you buy? Well, straight away I should be writing down town. And now I'm going to see how many DVDs do you buy. There's no time limit. That was my T, the clue. Write down two different things wrong with this question. No time limit. And the second thing, I've got overlap in my list. I've got a 5 and a 5, a 10 and a 10. Responses overlap. Okay, I'm just going to press pause for 1 second. Okay, another question for you. If you'd like to press pause. Okay, this is a slightly different question. As you can see, there's no response boxes and there's not actually the word questionnaire. But in this one, we have the word sample. And this is more about where you ask your question and who you ask your questions to. I read the question. 200 students in year 11 took a mathematics test. Kamini wants to find out whether the students in year 11 like mathematics. For her sample, she asked 20 students who got the highest marks in the test. This is not a good sample to use. Write down one reason why. Well, it's fairly obvious to me. The students who got the highest mark are likely to enjoy maths. So it is unfair just to ask those that did well, because they probably enjoyed doing well. Okay, that could be one answer. If it only asks you to give one, so only give one. Don't go and try and make it too confusing for you. I'm going to write a second one now so that you can see the two-pronged attack to the question that you may be asked. So that's my first answer. They only want one, so you only wrote one. If you're finding that hard to explain, 20 is just not enough. So just write 20 is too small for a sample. And to be honest with you, anything under 30 is too small. So any question where you're asking less than 30, you can always say that it's too small. Once you're over 30, you may need to look for a different reason. Let's just see if there's another question for you there. There is, if you'd like to press pause. Okay, welcome back. Straight away again, we're back to one of the boxes and questionnaire type questions. Just undo those. So as soon as I see the boxes and the questionnaire, I should be thinking to myself, town. So I'm just going to write town down now. Let's not forget, time limited, overlap, where it's asked, nil response or none response. Gary wants to find out how much time teenagers spend listening to music. He uses this question in the questionnaire. How many hours do you spend listening to music? 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, over 20. Write down two things that are wrong with this question. This really should be old hat now, which is why I like it so much as an exam question, because every single year it's exactly the same. There's no time limit. No time limit. And of course the boxes and boxes overlap. There we go. Now, design a better question for Gary's questionnaire to find out how much time teenagers spend listening to music. We copy his question. How many hours do you spend listening to music in a week. Doesn't really matter what you choose, but I've gone for a week there. They've not prompted us to do response boxes, so there's nothing about response boxes there, but it's always good practice too. I always have 5. 4 and 5. The first one, of course, must be none. I'm then going to go none, 1 to 3 hours, 4 to 6, 7 to 10, and more than 10. You would have seen by now the pattern of the questions. Your top box is always none, you make sure there's no overlaps, and the last one is always more than the end of your last one. Easy points. Okay, so easy that we don't need to practice them anymore. Hope that's useful to you. Please log on and watch another Back to the Net video. I'm sure it will help you.